Hello friends, welcome to my channel Power BI Skills. In this video, we will discuss about the term KPI and we would also learn gauge visuals and other KPI visuals which are available in Power BI to create KPI dashboards. So let's get started. What is KPI? The term KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. The key performance indicator refers to a set of quantifiable measurements which used to gauge a business performance. KPI helps the management of the organization to take timely decisions. Every function in the organization has their own KPIs which measures the performance of that function. For example, let's say sales function has a KPI of measuring actual sales against the target sales. They have a KPI of measuring the customer satisfaction score, etc. Similarly, HR has a KPI of measuring the attrition percentage against the benchmark attrition rate. Account receivables, they have a KPI of measuring the day sales outstanding, which represents how much days uh, they take to collect the money from the customer. Similarly, they have a KPI of collecting the payment against the due receivables. So these are the few examples of KPI. In short, KPI represent like how are we performing against our set goals. So these are the indicators of our performance. So let's move further. In this video, we will be discussing about KPI card visual. We'll be discussing about the gauge visual, which we have in Power BI. We'll be discussing about the dial gauge visuals. But in our next session, we'll be covering KPI circle visual and donut visual, and then we'll be covering a customized KPI card visual with dynamic color options and incorporating emojis as well. So this is a visual which we will create as per our own requirement. This is not the standard visual which would be available in Power BI. So before we proceed further, I would request you to please share and like my video and subscribe my channel in case you feel you are getting benefit from these videos. Thank you. Let's see the sample of these visuals in Power BI itself. In the screen, you can see various KPI visuals available in Power BI. In the top row, we have these two KPI card visuals where you can see how much we are performing against the targets. So the amount 16.3 million is the actual amount collected against the goal of 15.22 million, which is 7% over and above the goal. So since it is 7% over and above the goal, it is appearing in green. And if it is less than goal, this should appear in red. So this is the basic functionality in the KPI card visual. Uh, then we have another KPI card visual, which is comparing the current month performance against the prior month. Same rule here, like if we are exceeding prior month numbers, then it is appearing as green. If we are running short as compared to the prior month number, this would appear as red. The bottom two visuals are the gauge visuals, which are showing like how much we are doing against the target, but it's a different visual. The numbers are same. You can see that. And then again, this is current month versus prior month. And the last visual is the dial gauge visual, which is again a different way of presentation of like how we are performing against the target or against the benchmark. So these are the dynamic visuals which would change if we change the slicer details. So let's say if I select the collector name to Dave, so we'll have a different number reflect which relates to the collector Dave. Similarly, for Radha, we have a different visual, different numbers would appear. And for Ram, like we'll have a different numbers would appear. And if we select all, this would show the data for the entire team. These visuals would be covered in our today's video. In our part 2 video, we will be covering in detail about the circle KPI chart or visual and the customized KPI visual. We would customize as per our own requirement where we would be using emojis and other indicators to indicate that if we are doing well or if we are behind our target. So let's get started. Let's start it from the scratch with the help of our data set. In this example, we have a data set showing the performance of the collection department over the past 2 months, in the month of March and April. So we have different collectors' name, the total amount which is recoverable from the customer. So this is basically the portfolio assigned to each of the collector and the target assigned to the collector, which is 75% of the amount recoverable from their respective customers. And then we have a minimum collections. So this is the minimum amount which they are supposed to collect from the customers in a particular month if they want to get the variable pay, or I would say the performance based payment. And then we have the actual collections, how much they have actually collected against their goals and targets. So let's first upload this data set to Power BI and then we will present it through our KPI visuals. Let me just open Power BI and upload this data set to Power BI. Now this data is loaded. Uh, let's start building the KPI visual. So we'll first use the KPI card. You can see the cursor. So I'll select the KPI card. In this KPI card, in value, I will put my actual collections. In trend axis, I would put the month. So I'll basically put the month and year only. And in target, I would mention the target collections. Okay. So this is the KPI card which is developed. We'll format this. I will format the actual collections amount to US dollars. I will also format the collection targets to US dollars. I would change the title of this KPI card to, let's say, target versus actual. Okay. I would add the border. Now let's add some slicers so that we would see how this would change if we change the parameters. So let me add the slicer here and add the slicer for, let's say, the date hierarchy. And in the state hierarchy, I will remove quarter and day. I'll just keep month and year. and I'll go to format, slicer setting, and since this is already appearing as vertical list, I'll change this to drop down. From selections, I would I would select all option. I would add another slicer, and in this slicer, I would use the collector name. Follow the same process of formatting. Go to slicer settings, change this to drop down, and selection, I would select show all option. Okay. Now, let's say if I select the collector name Dave, you can see the amount which is appearing as 6.3. 6.3 is the actual collection for the total 2 months. Let me first select the collection for the month of April because we have a data for March and April. So in the month of April, Dave has collected 5 million against the goal of 4.125 million. So he has exceeded the goal by 21.21%. Similarly, if we see the performance of Radha, Radha has collected 6.5 million against the goal of 5.25%, 5.25 million, which is 23.81% over the goal of 5.25 million. Similarly, we can see for other collectors as well. Here you would see wherever uh, collector has exceeding the goal, number is appearing in green with the check mark. But wherever the collector is not able to achieve its goal, then there is a exclamation mark and amount is appearing in red. So this is the KPI indicator visual. So we can create the same visual by comparing the current month with the previous month. Same procedure we will follow. Add the KPI visual. We in the value we will add actual collections. In trend axis we will add data hierarchy, date hierarchy, sorry, and in target, instead of collection target, we will add previous month's collection. So first we'll have to calculate the previous month collection. For that, we will have to use the measure. I'll have to create a measure first. So we'll have to add a DEX formula. Calculate sum. Then we have actual collections, then comma. Then we have a DEX code for previous month, and then we have to add the dates. So here we will add month and we will close this. So in target, I would add previous month, and in previous month, I would also format this to US dollars. Now you can see in previous month, we had collected 2.6 million, whereas in current month, we have collected only 2.3 million. So there is a shortfall of 11.54% in case of Ram. If I change this to say Rahul, so in the month of March, he had collected 1 million, whereas in the current month, in the month of April, he has managed to collect 2.5 million. So there is a gain of 150%. So we will change the title the way we did it for the previous visual. We will write it as current versus previous month. We would add the borders, go to effects, add visual borders. So this is an example of KPI card visuals. So let's move on to the gauge visual. So it's very simple and straightforward. From various options for visualizations, we will select the gauge visual. In gauge visual, we would add values as our actual collections. Then minimum value, we will also always keep it as 0. Maximum value would be the total portfolio amount or total recoverable amount from the customers, which is the amount due from the customers. So that is the maximum value because this is the maximum amount we can collect from our customers. Then we have a collection target, which is mentioned. So we'll put this in the target value. So now we have a total amount recoverable is 3 million and the actual amount collected is 2.5 million, whereas the target was 2.25 million. So let me again format this. I'll change the title. I will keep it as target versus actual. And we can also change the color. So instead of blue, we can change it to maybe red or yellow. So similarly, for the target indicator, we can change the color to, let's say, purple. So these are the static colors we have in the gauge visual, but we have an option to make these colors as dynamic so that, so let's say wherever the collector has achieved the goal, then this color would turn green. Wherever the collector is not able to achieve the goal, then this color would turn red. So this can be done with the help of measure. So we'll have to create a new measure. Let me write this as gauge color. So here we will use switch true dex code. So switch true is similar to our if function, which we discussed in our dex code video. But it is better than if function because here we have an option to add multiple conditions, which is quite simple and straightforward. Let me explain you. Here we'll first enter the condition and then we'll enter the result. So let's say if our actual collection is greater than target collections, it means we have achieved our goal. Then the color would be green. Similarly, if our actual collection is less than target collections, then our color would be red. And if it is equal to the target collections, then our color would be yellow. So this is the measure we have created. Now what we have to do, we have to select the gauge chart. We'll have to go to the format, and in format we'll have to drop down to colors. And against this color, we have a function option available. I'll click on this FX option. And in the format style, from the drop down, I will select field value. And then from the field value, we have sheet 1. And under sheet 1, we have our measure, which is gauge color. I'll select that and click OK. So once I click OK, you can see, since in this particular case, Rahul has achieved the target. So that's why it is appearing as green. So let's see if we select Ram. Let's say Ram didn't achieve the target, so this is turned red. Dave has achieved the target, this is appearing as green. Similarly for Radha and Rahul, but in case of Ram, it is appearing as red. So now I hope you understood like how we can add a conditional color measure so that the color would get dynamic and would change as per the change in circumstances or parameters. Let me format this and add the borders. So we can create the similar gauge visual for current versus prior month as well. We'll follow the same step, add a new gauge visual. In values, we will enter current month. In minimum value, we would keep it as 0. Maximum value would be the total amount due from the customer. And in the target, instead of target, we would select the previous month collection numbers. So this is how we would calculate or we would create a gauge visual for comparing current month versus prior month. And you can create a measure to change the color dynamically in this particular visual as well, the way we had done it for the previous visual. The next visual which we'll cover today is the dial gauge visual. So you can see the icon of dial gauge visual, but this is not the standard visual available in the visualization option. To get this visual, you have to click on these three dots and select the option get more visuals. And in search, you have to type dial gauge. And once you type dial gauge, you will have this option dial gauge. Then you have to download these visual and then you can use it. And you have to put it in your visualization pane and you can use it whenever you require. So let's move on to this dial gauge visual. I'll select this visual. Now this visual is in terms of visualization, this is very good, but in terms of parameter, this is very complex or not very user friendly, I would say. But still, let's use this visual and let's see how we can create this visual with the data set available with us. So first, uh, we have different options here where we have to put the data, chart name, minimum, maximum, target sales, and so on. First, we'll put the data in pointer value. This pointer values actually represent our actual collections. So let me put the actual collections in the pointer value. Now you can see the numbers which are like, it is appearing as complete green and it is at the maximum. Needle is appearing at the maximum. Let me put the other values as well. So then in the max value, we will add the maximum amount which we can collect, which is the total amount which is due from our customers. So this is the maximum value. So now we have a maximum value available in the gauge, and it is showing the amount collected through the needle. And then we would add our targets. So target we'll put in target end. So we have a collection target. We'll put this in target end. Now we have two colors appearing, which is amber and green, but we have to put the minimum amount as well. So minimum collections, which any collector is supposed to collect to get the variable income, that would be in your actual end. So we have option here, actual end. Here we'll put the minimum amount which is supposed to be collected. So this is the dial gauge visual. I'll format this. First, I'll go to format, and I would option toggle, I would turn on. Now this would appear in millions, and I would also change the title. And this title, I would mention this target versus actual. I can increase the size, let's say to 20, and make it bold. And, if you want, you can change the text color, and you can align this title to the center. Yeah. So this is, and we can add borders as well. So to add borders, you have to go to general effect, and then you have to turn on the visual borders. So this is the visual for the dial gauge visual, a chart. And this is exact replica, or I would say a different way of presenting our standard gauge chart. This is also dynamic, like if I select different collectors, we'll get different results. So let's say in case of Rahul, the total collection was 2.5 million, uh, which is appearing here in the dial. Similarly, for different team members, we have the different numbers appearing. I hope you have learned through this video that how to create different KPI visuals, be it a dial gauge visual or a simple gauge visual and a KPI matrix, or I would say the KPI chart. I hope you would be able to implement this in your Power BI dashboard. Thanks for watching, friends. We'll meet in our next video.